What's going on, everyone? Thank you all so much for clicking on this video. And if you're returning, thank you for coming back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk all about Deebo Samuel. As many of you know, there's some drama going on between Deebo Samuel and the San Francisco 49ers. So in today's video, we're going to look at some potential landing spots for Deebo Samuel if he doesn't work things out with the 49ers. Before we get started, I would just like to ask you guys to please like this video and to subscribe to the channel. It would really help me to keep putting out content like this on a daily basis. So without further ado, let's get started. And I think when we all heard this, we thought it must be a money thing, right? Tyreek Hill gets paid, Devontae Adams gets paid, and Deebo Samuel wants to get paid, deservedly so. And then we got a tweet from Ian Rappaport that basically said it's not about the money, that the 49ers have been trying to work a long-term deal, and it's something else going on between the 49ers and Deebo Samuel. So, like I mentioned to you guys earlier, we're going to look at 7 teams that have a potential realistic shot at landing Deebo Samuel. In order to make this list, you either had to have a good reason why you would want Deebo Samuel. I know everyone would want to, but for example, a team like the Atlanta Falcons, even though they need receivers, I don't know if they want to trade draft picks and spend a bunch of money on a receiver when it really seems like they are several years away from competing. They're in full rebuild mode. And also, you had to feasibly be able to trade for him, so you need either the draft picks and the cap space. And you can't be a team like the Rams. Well, you know, the 49ers wouldn't trade him to the Rams anyways, but the Rams don't really have any draft picks, and I don't know how much cap space they have. So, without further ado, let's get into our first team. The first team that I think could have a realistic shot at landing Deebo Samuel is the Chicago Bears. Starting with cap space, the Chicago Bears cap number is enormous in 2023 and beyond. With over $120 million projected for 2023 offseason, they have more than enough money to pay Deebo Samuel. The one area in which the Bears could be lacking is the draft capital in order to trade for Deebo Samuel. They don't have a first round pick in 2022. However, they do have 2 second round picks, which are pretty high, and they could always trade future first round picks. However, we just don't know what the 49ers are going to ask for. Now, the last question is the need. Do the Bears need Deebo Samuel? And to me, the question is yes. They have a Justin Fields going into his second year, and they need to surround him with weapons. Right now, in the wide receiver position, they have Darnell Mooney, a good player, and Byron Pringle, another good piece, but they could really use an alpha wide receiver, number 1, and Deebo Samuel fits that perfectly. Next up on the list, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. Surprisingly enough, the Kansas City Chiefs actually have a decent amount of cap space going into the 2023 season, a lot of that due to the Tyreek Hill trade. And with a few cuts here and there and rearranging contracts, they definitely have enough to sign Deebo Samuel. The next question on the list is, do they have enough draft picks in order to trade for him? And the answer is yes. Thanks to the Tyreek Hill trade, they have 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, 2 third-round picks, 2 fourth-round picks, and 4 seventh-round picks in this year's draft. The last question on our list is, what is the need for Deebo Samuel? And I would say extremely high. They are the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback. They're going to be in contention, in playoff contention, in Super Bowl contention every year for the next several years. They need weapons in order to win. Currently, their wide receiver 2 is slated to be MVS, who is a nice player once again, but maybe better off as a third receiver and a deep threat. The third team on the list is the Baltimore Ravens. Similar to the Chiefs, the Baltimore Ravens have a decent amount of cap space going into the 2023 offseason, and again, they can cut players and restructure contracts to open up more. Now, in terms of draft capital, the Baltimore Ravens may not be as top-heavy as the Kansas City Chiefs. However, they do have their first and second-round picks, as well as 2 third and 5 fourth-round picks, which is definitely enough to trade for Deebo Samuel. And when it comes to need, the Baltimore Ravens are very similar to the Kansas City Chiefs. They want to win now. They have their quarterback that they believe they can win with, and they want to win a Super Bowl. And looking at their depth chart, they have Marquise Brown, a good number 1 receiver. They have Rashad Bateman, who has potential, but adding Deebo Samuel to this wide receiving core would possibly push them over the top. Next up, we have the New England Patriots. With over 60 million cap space in the 2023 offseason, the Patriots have more than enough to give Deebo Samuel a long-term contract. Now, even though they're not maybe overly stacked with draft capital and draft picks in this year's draft, they do have a pick in each of the first 4 rounds, and they can always trade future draft picks. And finally, when it comes to need, the New England Patriots are kind of a mix between the Chicago Bears and the Baltimore Ravens. They have a young quarterback who they need to surround with weapons, but also they're kind of in a position, as they were a playoff team last year, where they could possibly make it to the AFC Championship game, or who knows, make it to a Super Bowl. They're kind of in a win now mode with a young quarterback. And looking at their depth chart, they have a lot of okay, average to above average wide receivers in Jacoby Myers, Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar, but they could definitely use that number one receiver to supplement and complement all of those guys. The fifth team on the list is the New York Jets. The New York Jets have an okay amount of cap space into the 2023 offseason, and of course, the cap number can always be tweaked in order to expand it and to make room for players. Now, they definitely have enough draft picks in order to trade for Deebo Samuel. They have 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks going into the 2022 draft. And, of course, our last question is, what is the need for the Jets to trade for Deebo Samuel? And to me, it's just like the Chicago Bears. You have a young second-year quarterback who needs weapons in order to succeed. No quarterback can succeed without weapons. Why do we think Patrick Mahomes did so well coming out the gates? It's because he had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid as his head coach. I hope teams are starting to understand this. You need weapons. And the Jets have a good start. They have Corey Davis and Elijah Moore, whom I like very, very much. However, if you add Deebo Samuel to this team, we could see a huge jump from Zach Wilson in year 2. Our second to last team is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, it seems like the Jaguars always have cap space every single year. However, in 2023, their cap space isn't that high, just over 20 million, but definitely enough to sign Deebo Samuel to a long-term contract. Now, in terms of draft picks for the 2022 draft, the Jaguars are loaded with 12 draft picks, including a first, a second, and 2 third-round picks. Now, Jacksonville falls under the exact same category as the Chicago Bears and the New York Jets. You have a young second-year quarterback whom you need to surround with weapons. And looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars depth chart, they have Christian Kirk, a pretty good receiver, but maybe not a number 1. Marvin Jones, another solid receiver, but getting up there in age. Laviska Shenault. So adding Deebo Samuel would just make this wide receiver room push it over the top and really help Trevor Lawrence improve on his lackluster rookie year. Now, the last team on my list may come as a shock to everyone, but it is the Cincinnati Bengals. Looking at their cap space for the 2023 offseason, they have almost $60 million in cap space, more than enough to sign a big name player. Now, the Bengals aren't necessarily stacked with draft picks, but they do have a first round, a second round, a third round draft pick in the 2022 draft, which is more than enough to acquire Deebo Samuel, in my opinion. Now, when you look at this depth chart, you would definitely say there's no way the Cincinnati Bengals need Deebo Samuel. With 2 young stud receivers with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and a really good third receiver in Tyler Boyd, why do the Bengals need Deebo Samuel? Well, they want to win. They were just in the Super Bowl. They came oh so close to winning a Super Bowl. They got to get back. And the AFC is more than stacked this year. Stacked with quarterbacks, and teams are loading up and getting ready for a run in the AFC. And even in the Bengals' home division, they have to deal with the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Browns, all 3 really, really good teams. The Bengals need to load up as well. And getting Deebo Samuel and maybe even trading a Tyler Boyd could really just make this offense completely unstoppable. So there you have it, guys. Those are the 7 teams that I chose that could potentially trade for Deebo Samuel in the coming days, and definitely before the draft next Thursday. So what do you guys think? Did I choose one of your favorite teams? Do you agree or disagree with my reasons on each team? Do you think there's another team that could possibly trade for Deebo Samuel? Or do you think that Deebo Samuel and the 49ers will work things out? Please leave a comment. Tell me what you think. And again, like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all so much, and I will see you next time.